Hey guys, welcome back to 48 Minutes or Less, your weekly podcast for all things NBA in less than 48 minutes. Joining me as always is the big man in the middle, Sawyer, and manning the point of attack is George. So for this week's pod, we kind of wanted to do, I guess, like a third of the season NBA awards. So just through about 25, 30 games, run through who we think so far have been like the season MVP, the most improved player, and stuff like that. So without further ado, let's begin. So I think that to start at the list, we might as well just start with the biggest thing, and that's MVP, and then kind of who have been our MVP so far this season. So at least for me, I kind of thought of the top 5 guys. For MVP, for all the other awards, we decided to do 3, but at least for MVP, we wanted to do 5. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to run through my 5 and then kind of give an explanation of why I think each of these players is on there and why I think who's number 1 is number 1. So for number 5, I had James Harden. For number 4, I had Anthony Davis. For number 3, I had LeBron James. Number 2 was Luka Doncic. And then number 1, I had Giannis Antetokounmpo. So I know the first thought is a lot of people might think that James Harden is pretty low on my list, considering he's averaging nearly 40 points per game. But I think part of the reason why I had him number 5 is while he's averaging a lot, it seems like it's more of the same as he has had in previous seasons. And at least for me, averaging 40 points is great, but it seems to impart he does it to sometimes a detriment of the team where he doesn't get his other players involved. He does a lot of iso ball. And while they are in the unwinning games, they're not winning as much as all the other guys on the list. So with LeBron and then Anthony Davis as number 3, number 4, it kind of came to a point where they're going to split votes considering they're both on the same team. But the way that I looked at it was LeBron, I think, is just slightly more valuable because of what he does on the offense. Because while Anthony Davis is tremendous offensive and defensively, he's more of he needs a ball handler to kind of get him the ball so he can make something on offense. While LeBron James is that offensive force, he can get assists, he can do pretty much anything on offense. He's like a brick wall. So I kind of decided to go with LeBron James. Also, part of my reasoning was track record. I feel that LeBron James has more of a track record than Anthony Davis of playing at a top 3 MVP level. So my number 2, while it might be a little bit early, considering he's still only a second-year player, is Luka Doncic. But I think the fact that he's single-handedly pretty much, I mean, I know Kristoff has some to do with it, even though he's not. His own offense has been great. His ability to create space for Luka to drive in. Luka leads the league right now Luka is second in drives in the NBA, and he leads the league in efficiency on drives. And that's a lot has to do with Kristoff. But at the end of the day, Luka is the one-man offense. His ability to pass, to rebound, and then to score at a high efficiency level. His ability to just read the floor, and it's incredible for a second-year player. And I think that by having him second, it might be a little bit early, but I think I'm rewarding him for what he's done. And then my number 1 was Giannis. Giannis won the MVP last year, and then for me personally, he's improved on last year. So it'd be ridiculous to think that the player that won the MVP last year and got better shouldn't be the MVP this year. Considering he's putting up career high in points, he's putting up a career high in 3-point attempts, and a career high in 3-point percentage. While it's still below league average, the fact that he's taking those shots, that he's showing the initiative to take those shots, that he's not scared to pull up, could potentially be great for them going into playoffs this year. He's also shown better instincts when it comes to passing, which will help him considering last year that was one of the issues when he got double teamed. He didn't have the best instincts to pass out to open players. It's also tough when you're passing out to Eric Bledsoe. So those are my 5. I don't know if you guys want to go and just go through your 5.
Okay. First of all, I didn't think you were going to talk nearly as much.
Yeah, you kind of said everything.
Yeah, what are we going to say? I'm pretty sure we all almost have the same top 5.
So, thanks guys. That just means I fucking killed it.
No, that means you're a ball hog. You're a mic hog. But I can go. So yeah, Lewis, I mean, my top 5 is pretty similar to what you have. Same players, except I think James Harden probably has a better chance than Anthony Davis of winning it, just simply because, similar to what you said, LeBron and Anthony Davis would split votes, but I think that LeBron would take more of the votes than anything. I mean, he's leading the league in assists right now. He's won it before, and Anthony Davis hasn't, and I just think that gives LeBron maybe a little bit of an edge. But I think James Harden would have a chance if I think if his free throws weren't nearly as much of a reason for his nearly 40 points a game, I know it's part of the game. So like it's hard to knock him for doing something that's a part of the game, but it somehow just feels wrong. Like you see 40 points per game, you're just like, man, that guy must be absolutely dominating. His team must only have like 3 losses on the year. No, that's not the case. He's not like he'll dominate the game, but it's because he's the only person scoring on his team.
Yeah, so I think I heard this on the No Dunks podcast, but I think it's the best way to describe Harden, and it's you respect what he does, you just don't like it.
Yeah, but I think Giannis is obviously the front runner right now, and I think part of the reason is just he's just so dominant, and the team is gonna have a number 1 seed. And that's a huge that matters a lot to a lot of voters. Like Luka Doncic just got hurt, hopefully he comes back, the same kind of, but even if he's not nearly playing up to par as he was, like I feel like if he did this, because he averaged almost 30 points, 10 rebounds and 10 assists almost the entire year, if he did that while having a true shooting percentage of over 60%, I mean, how can you not give him the award in a way, especially if his team is like a top 3 in the West, and the West is supposed to be one of the best conferences in terms of like heavy end talent. So I think that like I just don't. My problem with giving him the MVP would be like, I don't think he could do it all year round, but I would actually say that for the first third of the year, I would actually give it to Luka Doncic. Because he has his team now 3rd in the West.
So could you actually list your 1 through 5? Like, what's your 1 through 5?
Yeah, so I've got Giannis number 1. I'm not going to do what Lewis did and start with 5 for whatever reason. So my number 1 is
For
Giannis.
For suspense, bro.
For suspense, sure. I have Giannis at number 1, Luka at number 2, LeBron at number 3, James Harden at 4, and then Anthony Davis at 5. That's how I would rate this.
Wait, but you say that you would give Luka the MVP? Then I would switch it.
I know, but I mean, I was just, as talking about it and after talking through it, I'm thinking more of like, by the end of the year, I think Luka will be 2nd. But in terms of the way that it's been like this first third of the year, I think Luka Doncic deserves to have the MVP for this third of the year. Because he's just, what he's done for his team, the way they're number 1 on offense, nearly averaging a triple-double, shooting over 60% true shooting. I mean, yes, Giannis and everything he's playing fantastic. He's playing less minutes too. He's only playing like 31 minutes a game.
How do you play basketball? What do you do? What do you do when your opponent has the ball? You play defense. What does Luka not do?
I mean, he plays decent defense.
Yeah, but Giannis is one of the best defenders in the game, and I would say the best two-way player in the game right now.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, I think Giannis is, the way it looks, I think Giannis is going to win it hands down, but I don't know. I just feel like Luka Doncic has just been more of like, in terms of most valuable players to his team in those aspects. Like, I mean, I don't think, obviously the Bucks wouldn't be nearly as good as they are without Giannis, but I don't think the Mavs would be anywhere near where they're at without Luka Doncic.
My thing with that reasoning is that I can't blame Giannis for having a better team than Doncic does. And Giannis
no, of course not.
And I think the point is, in a way, Doncic has been more impressive. That might be it. Devoted fatigue of like, oh yes, Giannis is better, but he was already really fucking great last year. So the idea that Luka's improved so much can play into the narrative that like, oh, this guy's the MVP.
And it's not just him; it's his team. The way his team has improved because of that. You know what I mean? Like James Harden is playing well, sure, stats wise, but his team is not. They're not in the top 3 in the West right now. They're 5th in the West. They're behind. I mean, they're technically tied with Dallas in a way. Still, I mean, I don't know. That's just my opinion on it.
Yeah, George, do you want to run through your 5? Yeah, I'll run through my 5 real quick. So I have Giannis at number 1, LeBron at number 2, Luka at number 3, Harden at number 4, and Anthony Davis at number 5. And so when I was making my list, I was thinking about putting Anthony Davis before Harden, sort of like you did, Lewis. But then I realized that how much of that is my bias against what Harden does because I don't necessarily like it. And so even though I do have issues and his team is the team here that's won the least amount of games, it's still extremely impressive what he's doing with the 39.3 points. That's extremely impressive, and it is on high efficiency, even if I'm not necessarily a fan of it. And his PR is higher than Anthony Davis is as well. And yeah, while he doesn't necessarily play defense, his team kind of needs him to be the offensive threat. My only concern with Harden is sometimes I wonder, because when they look at his numbers and they're like, oh, they definitely need Harden because they don't play as well when Harden's not on the field, it might be because Harden doesn't allow any of his teammates to get into rhythm. And so much of basketball is arithmetic. And so players get good, start playing better as the game goes on because they start building rhythm. But when you're just sitting or standing around watching Harden play, it might be really hard to build that rhythm. So then when Harden leaves, you don't necessarily have like the energy or the build up or you've been doing the same thing all game, so you're sort of arithmetic to it.
Yeah, and when they don't play well either, when Harden isn't shooting well, the team doesn't play well at all either. Nobody else can step up.
That is something that I worry about come playoffs when James Harden is going to constantly get double teams and then Westbrook is going to be the guy that has to create for his team, how that's going to come playoffs. And I think maybe that's something outside of the MVP voting that the Rockets should look at is to lower Harden's usage or to kind of find counters to that scheming that they're going to receive come playoffs if they actually want to make a push to become a finals contender. I mean, my concern with Harden and Westbrook was the same concern I had, and it wasn't necessarily the two guys. It was like they're both two players that don't understand that sometimes like you should stop shooting, and you'll see it with players that are like LeBron that I really like, and that's one of my favorite things about LeBron is when LeBron's having an off shooting night, he won't shoot 100 times. He'll start passing. He'll start letting other players get hot, and LeBron is known to get hot, and I noticed it in LeBron, and then the guy that actually had sixth was Jimmy Butler. He does the same thing. So he lets his teammates get hot, while Harden doesn't let his teammates get hot. And Luka is great at making his teammates better. And the reason why I moved him third and moved LeBron up is actually because of the injury. So now he's going to be out for like 3 weeks. So ideally that would actually drop him in my MVP voting. Because the number of games you play does matter.
Okay, but are you looking at as like for this third of the year, or are you looking at as the way it's going to end up in the end? Because the way you mentioned, the injury just happened, like it's not going to affect. It doesn't affect what just happened in the last third. It will affect going forward.
Yeah, but you had Luka second because you thought Giannis was going to win it at the end.
Yeah, no, and I changed my mind. I was just I'm asking him. Yeah, I would say Luka for the first third of the year. I think Luka was the MVP. But when all things considered, when it comes like to the end of the season, I think it's going to end up being Giannis.
You're right. You're right. I should look at the first half, the first third of the season. So with that, I'm gonna keep Luka at 3, because I still think LeBron deserves it more than Luka, and that's just because I think Luka, a lot of his pushes from just the bias of how great he's amazing. He's amazing. But LeBron team is better.
I get it, but the issue I had was you mentioned you said you had Luka at 3 because of the injury.
Yeah, I guess it cemented him at 3 for me. The injury when I was thinking about it.
That's why I was asking, just to verify what exactly you mean.
I think maybe what he meant was the idea so much that the fact that he got injured was kind of showed the fact that maybe he was playing at a level that he can actually keep up. I had mentioned this like a month ago, that I was like, my only concern with Luka is that he's playing out of his mind, and so he's overexerting his body. And I mean, he did get a lot fitter in the summer than last year, and they're working with him. And I mean, I hope he comes back healthy and can continue what he's been doing. And then my number 1 was Giannis, obviously. And my only concern with Giannis, and the only negative I have to say about him so far, I mean, his defense is incredible. He has probably going to have the highest PR of all time. And my only concern is that he's shooting really bad from the free throw line. I'm scared that teams will start hacking him, and he'll start sort of like, you know how like Ben Simmons avoids things so he doesn't get fouled? I'm scared of Giannis getting there where he starts avoiding contact to not get fouled. Especially since he's such a strong player that doesn't, right now, he just goes in, doesn't mind anything. But if his free throw keeps being, if people start hacking him, it can create issues.
Yeah, it's just Giannis doesn't seem like that kind of player to me. He doesn't seem like a guy that would give up. He would just kind of push through his struggles. And I think he will. I think his free throws will start coming back for him.
So just to recap, I think at the end we all decided that Giannis should deserve the. Oh no, me and George decided Giannis, and
I mean, I could go either way. I could go either way on it. Like, it's not like it's a close.
So
it's
are
a
we
close
saying it's the second unanimous MVP?
I don't know if it's
not. This one's not
going
to be unanimous. No, I'm talking about us.
When you have three people, I don't know if you can consider unanimous.
Well, moving on. Do you guys want to move on to Rookie of the Year? Oh, we're doing Rookie? Yeah, sure. You can go first if you want, sir.
Yeah, why not? I'm gonna go first. So for my Rookie of the Year, you know what? I'm gonna do what you did, Lewis. I'll build up suspense. Except I'm gonna build up suspense by starting with my number one. So for number one, I think the Rookie of the Year, or Rookie of the Third, in a way, I guess, is obviously, I think John Morant is probably number one, and then Brandon Clark number two. I think it's hilarious that I feel that two Memphis Grizzly players over any other rookies are some of the two best rookies right now. I think it's great for their future. But at number three, I just have to think that the rookie duo in Miami with Tyler Hero and Kendrick Nunn, they're both playing really well for a team that's contending right now, I would feel, in a way. And it's like they're giving quality minutes.
I think I really like the rookie in Miami. One thing that they both have to work on is consistency issues, where like Tyler Hero will give you 32 one night and then 0 the next. But that comes with being a rookie. But overall, I think they've both been exceptional.
Yeah, and I mean, they're rookies. It's how it goes. You don't really know what they're going to be consistently, but if you look at their overall stats and the way not just their stats, but the way they play, they contribute well to the team. But I just think John Morant I don't think anybody could catch up to him maybe at this point, barring like something happening similar to like Donovan Mitchell. Even though he didn't win the award, he still like closed the gap between when he started going off late November-ish, something around that time. But anyways, so right now I think John Morant is probably the clear front runner even going forward, unless something where he gets out for a while and somebody else kind of takes the spotlight. But I mean, he's not playing bad. I mean, he's got a 55% true shooting percentage. But I mean, Brandon Clark, on the other hand, in only 21 minutes of action a game on average, about almost 13 points and 6 rebounds, and has the second best true shooting percentage in the entire league. Not just the rookies, in the entire league.
Yeah, my only thing with Brandon Clark and him and he wasn't even considered for me, was just the amount of games he's played, because he's missed time. And his minutes are low, so it's really hard for me to consider him, especially when Rookie of the Year is such a show yourself award rather than an actual stats award.
But I would say I just feel he was my second best rookie this year. I don't know. I mean, you could easily put Tyler Hero or Kendrick Nunn. I just feel that they were better listing them together in a way.
I don't see a problem with having Brandon Clark. I didn't have him on my list either, but I think he might arguably be the best rookie on a per minute basis outside of Morant, because of what Morant can do handling the ball, just his ability to drive. He's still not a great shooter, but I think that's something he can develop.
Also needs to cut back on the turnovers too.
Yeah, and there's some stuff in his game that he can fix, but the thing that I see with him is the stuff that he struggles with are things that can be fixed, but there's certain things that he does where you can see that, say, projecting 5 years into the future, this guy has the potential to be a top 20 NBA player in 5 years. So that's why I also have John Morant as my number one. It's just when he's just clearly the best of all the rookies in this class, and by a mile. I'm not sure if Zion will do enough in the time that if he does come back, but reports are showing that he might not even come back this year. So that's why I actually only had John Morant. In fact, I had my number 2 was John Morant's dunk over Baines, and my number 3 was John Morant's fight with a camera. I just think that it's not close, and he's taking the award by a landslide. And for me, putting a second and third is doing a disservice to how great he's been above his competition. I would like to mention Eric Pascal of the Golden State Warriors, just to give his name out. He kind of gets overshadowed because of all the injuries happening in Golden State, but he's also having a great rookie season. George, if you want to give out your list, who your top 3 were.
So I think it's unanimous that John Morant is the number 1 rookie this year and is on pace to probably be Rookie of the Year. I think Zion, if he were to come back tomorrow, might have a shot, but that's not happening. He might, like you said, he might not even come back. So I have Ja at number 1. I have Nunn at number 2, and then I have Rui at number 3. And even though I don't think Rui is better than some of the players I've not listed, he's doing everything you need to do to win Rookie of the Year, and that is put up numbers and put up buckets. And so like with Rookie of the Year, I struggle with it because it's do I want to rank the players that are gonna have that are performing like what you need to do to win Rookie of the Year? Do I want to rank the players who I think might be superstars? Because and honestly, the only player I can see as a superstar that's currently playing that's not Zion is Ja. So I can see how like you could just rank Ja 3 times, but I think you should appreciate what players like Nunn are doing. And then they were I would say my 4th and 5th, and that was Hero and Tybal. I just think what Matisse Thybulle is doing defensively is amazing, and he's like not a liability defensively. His offense could leave stuff to be desired, but if you think about a playoff series, and if you have Josh Richardson, Thybulle, and Ben Simmons as your front court, it's really, really hard to score against them, and they're gonna make you play isolation because if you even pass, your ball's gonna get stolen. Yeah, so I guess we all have Ja. You guys want to move on to?
Yeah, we can move on to Defensive Player of the Year.
Yeah, so Defensive Player of the Year. Everyone feel like Defensive Player of the Year is really a pretty tricky award, especially, I guess Defensive Player of the Third is a really tricky award because it's so early on still, and so it's like you have like the Nuggets, for instance, who are top defense, but they're being helped by shooting luck and stuff like that. So it's like, how do you award it properly? So I felt that at least my first and second were gonna be the best defensive engines of the best teams in the NBA currently. So my number 1, I actually have Anthony Davis, and then my number 2, I have Giannis, and at my number 3, I have Embiid. And the reason why I have Davis over Giannis is because I just think Davis has completely changed the culture defensively of the Lakers, and he's gotten guys like Dwight Howard to defend again. He's gotten LeBron to defend and care about defending in the regular season. So that's a big thing. And so I had to have him number 1. And then I put Giannis at number 2 because they're the number 1 ranked defense in the NBA, and he's just a free safety out there. He's just defending the opponent's weakest offensive players, so he can just like roam and just like defend everything. And then on top of that, he's just so lengthy and everything. It's just perfect for Defensive Player of the Year. And like I said, he's the best two-way player in the league. And then at number 3, I have Embiid. And even though the 76ers are the 5th best defense for the regular season, I think come playoffs, they're going to be probably one of the best defenses of all time. And Embiid, as far as defensive metrics go, and defensive metrics are a little washy-washy, he's currently the second best player, with the number 1 ranked player being DeAndre Ayton, who only played 1 game, so that doesn't really count. So he's, with 23 games played, he's the number 1 player. And just like when he's on the court, it's impossible to score against him. He's the best rim protector in the game. Maybe him and Rudy Gobert. But I have to go with Embiid because the Jazz's defenses, they're the 11th defense in the NBA currently. How about you guys?
Joel Embiid was your what one?
He was my 3rd. Yeah, so I have Davis, Giannis, and Embiid.
I didn't put Joel Embiid on mine. I do my number 1 and my number 2 are the same as yours, just switched. So I had Giannis number 1 because he's the best defender on the best defense, and I think what he does out there, his ability to guard the 1 through 5 pretty much, the length that he has, the ability to rim protect, to his help defense. I think he can do so much to a defense that Anthony Davis, while he's a tremendous defender, I feel like Anthony Davis can sometimes have lapses, attitude issues, which appeared a lot more in New Orleans than in the Lakers, but it's still something to keep a watch for. While he has the ability to defend, he can sometimes take plays off. So that's why I kind of had him at number 2, but I wouldn't be surprised if he takes it home at the end of the year, especially if Giannis takes MVP. A lot of voters don't want to do like what happened with Hakeem, where he took MVP and Defensive Player of the Year.
My thing with Giannis, and even though like even his defensive metrics, they rank him number 4, and with Anthony Davis on the field, opponents have a 103 offensive rating against them, but with Giannis, they only have a 97. But again, Giannis's team is like they have players that are more built for defense. I just think you should award the way you award like MVP for like how you could award an MVP because the rest of the players have just performing better. And so you're like, oh, like LeBron, the players he raises the floor of like his teammates. Anthony Davis is doing the same thing on the defensive end. His teammates are playing better defense because of him, and I think that should be recognized.
Yeah, so for my number 3, I had Rudy Gobert. Even though his team has taken... So they were number 1, number 2 for a lot of the season, and lately they've fallen a lot, and they're currently ranked 11th. I think that at the end of it, Rudy Gobert is the best rim protector in the NBA, and I don't want to fault him for him not having necessarily the best defensive pieces around him to have him succeed. Last year, when they had Derek Favors was criminally underrated in what he brought to their defense, and not having him, a lot of that rim protection falls on Rudy. And so coming into the season, I thought that they would struggle to have a top 10 defense. They did for most of the year, and I think now things are settling back to norm. So while I don't think he'll win it, because it's really hard to win it if you don't have a top 10, top 5 defense, I just like to put his name out there because he's still doing a tremendous job.
Do you think it should be mentioned that out of Anthony Davis, Giannis, and Rudy Gobert, out of the 3 that you listed, he's the only one that you can actually scheme offensively against? Like, you can scheme against his defense, while the other 2 you can't?
I think that, like, when people think about scheming is because of the last 2 years with the Rockets, but not a lot of players can do what James Harden can. So Rudy Gobert can pretty much guard about 97% of the league. The guys that he can't are the top players in the NBA, and I guess that's something to talk about when it comes to playoffs, but this is a regular season award. And when it comes to the regular season, Rudy Gobert is, give or take something, he's probably the best outside of maybe Draymond, but Draymond's more of a playoff defender. I would say Rudy Gobert's the best defender in the league. His team's just not defending on par this year. So sorry, do you want to run through your list, or you have anything to say?
I mean, my number 1, number 2 are the same as George. Anthony Davis 1, Giannis 2. But I think, and he's not, I don't think he'll probably win the award. Obviously, he won't. I don't think he could do enough to do it. But I think Jonathan Isaac has played really good defense. 1.3 steals, 2.7 blocks a game. I mean, those are on par with Anthony Davis and Giannis Antetokounmpo. But the only difference, I guess, is that, Giannis and Anthony Davis are on, top 5 defensive teams.
What are the Magic
while
ranked
the Magic
now?
are 12th.
They're 12th?
They're 12th on defense. Yeah. So they're not like scrubs, but they're not obviously in the top 10. But the thing is with, like, Giannis obviously plays great defense. But to award the fact that he should win it because his team is number 1 in defense. Again, it's his team that's number 1 in defense. So it's like George said, it's not just Giannis that could play defense. You have Eric Bledsoe plays really good defense, and Chris Middleton actually isn't that bad on defense either. And they're also demolishing opponents so much that they give up. So yeah, and so I just think what Jonathan Isaac has done to help the Magic. In terms of, I don't remember where they were at last year. I definitely don't think they were in the top, close to being in the top 10 defensively last year.
What do you guys have Embiid ranked?
Maybe 4th or 5th, but I mean, I didn't think past 3.
Yeah, I probably have him with like Marcus Smart and Paul Millsap for that maybe 4th, 5th position.
Again, I boiled it down to the fact that Joel Embiid does play great defense, but it's hard to, like, defensive is so hard to find metrics for, especially because defensive is much more of a team aspect. So the fact that even if the 76ers have a great team defense, like, do you reward Joel Embiid because of that? I mean, if for whatever, say the Rockets somehow, I'm not saying they are, but say the Rockets somehow end up a top 10 defensive team, do you say that now James Harden is a candidate for Defensive Player of the Year?
No, but like, that's ridiculous to say. Like, because like, I would say on a permanent basis, Embiid is the best defender in the NBA. He just doesn't play as many games. I would say it's between him and Rudy Gobert.
It's also hard to say because Embiid, like, hasn't faced the competition that Gobert has come playoffs.
Yeah, but we clearly saw that. Playoffs. You clearly saw what happened to that team when Embiid was off the floor.
But a lot of that has to do with them not having any centers, any like decent centers.
Yeah, I know that, but I mean, we're talking about a 40 different plus minus. That's not just having a bad center out there.
So the next award that I wanted to talk about, or that we had, was the Most Improved Award. So my 3 I'm no longer doing suspense. So I had number 1 was Pascal Siakam. I know that he won last year, but I think that he's still the most improved player. My number 2 were Bam Adebayo, and then my number 3 was the entire Boston Celtics. And I'll run through those, but just an honorable mention. I usually don't vote for second-year players, but I do think that what Devontae Graham and Luka Doncic have done so far this year is really impressive, and I just wanted to shout them out. But the reason why I went with Pascal for number 1, even though I think that in the end of it, Bam will win it, I think that the jump between being a borderline all-star to an MVP candidate is a lot bigger. Pascal went from maybe a top 30 guy to a top 15 guy. That 15 player difference is so much more than going from a top 80 player to a top 40 player, in my opinion. So that's why I went with Pascal over Bam. And just the ability that he's shown as a player, his offense has gone to the next level, and I think that he deserves at least a mention, and at least he's my most improved player. Bam, what he's done as a passer, his ability to score as a passer, the way that he fits with Jimmy Butler, he's part of what makes the Heat. He's part of the reason why the Heat have gone so far. I think that's the reason why I voted him number two. And then the number 3 was just the Boston Celtics. I just their ability to play better without Kyrie. That's impressive. The improvement that all the players have made, Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum, all those guys, I think they've improved a lot as a team.
I mean, I see what you mean. I mean, I know that like Luka and Devontae Graham probably aren't going to win Most Improved just because second-year players don't. But for my and the way I looked at it was for the first third of this year, you have to give Luka Doncic for Most Improved Player. Like, he's made the crazy. You talk about Pascal making a jump from All-Star to MVP candidate. Luka Doncic went from rookie of the year to, he didn't make the All-Star last year, did he?
No, he did. He went from rookie of the year to.
So he's making a jump from rookie of the year to MVP candidate. So I would say that's more of a more impressive thing. But like you said, he's just not going to win because second-year players tend to never win that.
Because they shouldn't.
Yeah, I understand that. And then Devontae Graham, he's gone from almost possibly unplayable to now, like, is he part of the future?
Probably, yes.
Yeah, he's about to get paid.
Yeah, like, he will. I mean, he's leading the league because Steph Curry is injured, obviously, but he's leading the league in three-pointers made. And then the guy I have number 3 and the guy I believe will end up winning the award is Bam Adebayo, just because not only is he taken such a huge step, he's also improved his game with passing and being more efficient from the field and playing good defense as well. So I think it's his award to lose at this point.
Yeah, so I just think you guys are fools. Full of bullshit. Yeah, you guys are fools. So for my most improved, my number 1 is without a doubt Idris Femi Adebayo, also known as Bam Adebayo. It just makes sense. I had Pascal, similar to Lewis, at number 1, but in the last 10 games, he has not been good. He has not been top MVP at all, and because of that, I'm bringing him down to second because of what he did in the first half of the third of the season. But in the last couple games, they're 6-4 in the last 10 games, and he just hasn't been. Maybe it's because Kyle Lowry came back, but ever since Kyle Lowry came back, he just hasn't been great.
They've also had a really tough schedule.
Yeah, but Bam, Miami's also had a pretty tough schedule, and Bam in the last 10 games he had a career triple. He had a 30-point triple double, and he's just been killing it. So I think he's the most improved because to me he should be an All-Star this year. And I guess Pascal was an MVP candidate. He was like ranked 5th a couple weeks ago. And then even though, like I said, I don't like to consider second-year players because they are supposed to get better, I think what Golden Graham has done is really, really impressive. And I was struggling between him and Luka, but I went with him because, I don't know, maybe it's because it's hard for me, and I guess it's this bias and unfair, but it's hard for me to look at a most improved player when I was already expecting them to be great. He's far exceeded my expectations. But with Graham, I didn't even know who he was last year.
Yeah, they honestly need to redefine what they classify as most improved.
That's because remember when Giannis won it, and I was having issues with it because I was like, yeah, but Giannis was already good before he won it. Like I felt like he won it the wrong year. Like Paul George won it too, but Paul George was already decent when he won it. Kevin Love won it, but he was already kind of decent when he won it. For me, it's like when Jimmy Butler won it, where it's like, who is this? Or like when Victor Oladipo won it, where like you knew who it was.
CJ McCollum.
CJ McCollum won it, or when Victor won it, where everyone had already given up on him. And for me, Graham is like, who was this guy? I don't think he deserves it because he's a second-year player. But that's kind of the mentality. And I think Bam Adebayo is going to win it because Pascal won it last year. And then Bam was like, we knew who it was, but like he's like becoming one of the faces of the Miami Heat. He's making that team more favorable, and he is part of the. I think if they can get another piece like Drew Holiday, I think because of him and if they get Drew and Jimmy, they could be a title contender.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, like I don't think there's any precedent for somebody winning Most Improved Player in back-to-back years.
It'd have to be like I jump from a low-end rotation piece to a starter to an MVP candidate. That would have to be the case. So I think the year that Victor won it, if Victor hadn't done that, Giannis should have probably won it.
Yeah, probably. Do you guys want to move on to six men?
Yeah, let's do six men.
So when it comes to the sixth man of the year or sixth man of the third, I think so far, number one for me has to be Montrezl Harrell. He's just continuing on a year that he did last year. I don't have any more to say about him. He's just a freaking monster.
No,
he's
just say it.
He's just a freaking monster. But I mean, I think the one person that might actually come out of the six, like actually may end up surprising some people and winning it is mainly because Eric Bledsoe got hurt, would be George Hill. He's third in the league right now in true shooting percentage, but he's just only playing like 21 minutes a game, while like Harrell and like Lou Will are playing like 30 plus minutes a game. So I think like if George Hill gets some more minutes, he's going to get some more playing time with Eric Bledsoe hurt, up his stats some. He might have a good chance of possibly winning it this year, but I don't know, honestly. Sixth man of the year is one of the hardest ones to judge, in my opinion.
Especially sixth man of the third is really hard to judge.
I mean, because take Spencer Dinwiddie. He's not. I don't think he's eligible anymore, but he would probably be near the top of my awards if he was, because he started so much at this point.
Yeah.
Same with Devontae Graham. Like Devontae Graham was off the bench. If he had stayed off the bench and still put up with the numbers he was doing, he should be sixth man. But he's starting now. He's too good to not start.
You have like Derrick Rose, but he's missed too many games, stuff like that. I had Harrow as well. I had him first. I had Lou Will second, and then I had Goran Dragic third. Even though Goran has only played 18 games, he's been a beast off the bench. I mean, he's shooting 40% from three right now. But I have to go with Harrow. Out of the three I listed, he has the highest PR. He's actually playing better defense. Not great, but like better than compared to nothing last year. And him and Lou, he's having a better year, while Lou, in my opinion, is having a worse year than last year. So I have to give it to him.
Yeah. So I'm in agreement with you guys. It's my number one and my two are the two guys in the Clips. Montrezl, my number one. I just think it's his year. Lou won it last year. It's Montrez. It's kind of ridiculous to think that the Clippers have two players coming out of their bench that are both almost averaging 20 points per game. That is ridiculous. They have the best bench in the NBA. And then my number three. So you guys remember how the Lakers wanted to get Kawhi Leonard? Well, they weren't able to get Kawhi Leonard, so they got the second best thing, Kawhi.
Were we supposed to laugh?
It's funnier that we didn't. Honestly.
Yeah, I know, it's funnier that you did.
Just have crickets playing in the background.
When you don't get Kawhi, you can get bargain bin Kawhi.
Knock off Kawhi.
Knock off Kawhi.
Kawhi.
So yeah, I just think that with Caruso and Dwight, like their numbers individually might not pop out of the page, but what they've done together to kind of give a spark off that bench, both defensively and offensively, is pretty impressive. So those were my top three. I think at this point, if things continue the way it is, I don't see how Montrez will lose the award, which is good for him because he's in a contract year.
I think they should honestly change it from sixth man of the year to just like role player of the year. Not like why sixth man? Just be like role player, like somebody who's like, yeah, they may be starting like occasionally because like they're playing well, but like overall, they're a role player. You know, they're not a star of the team.
A lot of these awards are getting the title and what they mean are getting outdated because of the way the NBA is changing. So like even MVP, you should also probably just have like best offensive player of the year, and then with like most improved we were talking about, and then even six man, because like a lot of these six mans are playing like 30 minutes a game, and it's like at that point, are you really a six man? You're just not starting the game. Or how about if you're not starting games but you're finishing games? Are you really a six man?
Yeah, honestly, they should just be like give an award for the best bench of the year.
Yeah, something like that.
Who has the best bench?
But I guess in a sense, I would say that's almost like executive of the year, because the executive of the year is a lot awarded to like the guy who can, or the person who can make the best pieces around like a superstar or something. So that'd be almost like best bench of the year or best role player of the year. All right, I'm moving on to the last one here. Let me. I got this, guys. So I believe coach of the year is one of the hardest to do, because it's hard to define what is a good coach, and I feel like people are like, oh, those coaches are bad. But there's just a lot of coaches that are like, all right. So I'm actually going to sort of do 3, 2, 1, so I can leave the suspense from a number one coach. And it is surprising, guys. I'll tell you this much. So my number 3 coach is Vogel, and I have him at number 3. And it was pretty hard because I was thinking about Spoelstra. I was thinking about Nick Nurse. There's just so many good coaches, but I put him at number 3, and not because they're one of the 2 best teams in the NBA currently, and they're have one of the best defenses, but because he's able. You haven't heard anything bad from LeBron, and you know LeBron teams are always so with drama, and just like there hasn't been any drama coming out of the Lakers, so I think he's able to control their personalities well, and I think there's something to be admired in that. And his rotations are good, and if you're getting Dwight and Rondo to like buy in, that's impressive. And then my number 2 coach is Malone, and again, I struggle a lot with this, but the reason why I went Malone is because of the Denver Nuggets defense and being able to still be one of the top teams in the league with a guy in Jokic that doesn't even seem to like basketball anymore and just seems out of it completely. I don't know. You guys think he might have depression? He just seems really out of it.
Him and Embiid have seemed kind of out of it this year.
And I why is it always big men that get questioned about it? They love the sport. But like I want to appreciate Malone for what he's done.
Because they're big, so a lot of big men, it's the question of, do you actually love the sport, or are you only playing it because you're 7 feet tall?
And then my number 1 coach, and I thought a lot about this. I really, really did. And I have a theory, and I think it's true. If you're in a bad situation and you want to get out of it, you play Robinson with Randall. You bench Kevin Knox one day, then play him 30 minutes the next game, then don't play him at all the next game. You start Frank Ntilikina, even though the front office already told you. So I want to award Fitz for being able to get fired. And I just think that like he knew what shitty situation he was in, and he did the right coaching moves to get the hell out of the Knicks. And
he's still getting paid.
And I just think that's coach of the year material. But all jokes aside, I know this sounds shitty, but Bud is my coach of the year. Like, I know it's weird because he won it last year, but they're the number 1 defense, the number 2 offense, the best team in the NBA. Like, it's Bud.
So I mean I honestly don't have a single one of the coaches that you said on my list.
Wow, this is why I love coach of the year.
I know, but honestly, though, I think
wait, you don't have Fitz?
We should agree about this. No, I don't. Wait, I don't have who now?
Fizdale.
Fitz? Oh, he's fourth. He's fourth. He was right on the cusp. No, my number 1 coach, and I just, it almost seems like without a doubt, it's got to be Eric Spoelstra.
Oh, he was my
19-7. They're a top 10 offense and a top 10 defense. Like, yes, they're a number 10 offense and number 9 defense, but that's still really good. And considering that this is a team that has one like all-star, and you can get to a whole discussion about Jimmy Butler is a superstar or not, but regardless, like he is taking a team that is gotten a couple good pieces, and he just consistently does well with them, and they can easily compete for a championship. And then for number 2, I think it's Rick Carlisle with the Mavs. They're third in the Western. They're third in the Western Conference right now. They have the number one offense, and they're not slouches on defense. They're 14th. And nobody thought that the Mavs would be this good coming into this year. Nobody expected them to be the number 3 team in the conference right now. So I think at this point, Rick Carlisle is doing an amazing job. And then on top of that, at number 3, I have Nick Nurse. Did anybody expect him to do, like, everybody was like, he had Kawhi last year, but did anybody expect him to do as well as he's done this year, even considering injuries to Kyle Lowry and Ibaka? Like, he's not a slouch either. I mean, Toronto's second in a defensive rating.
No, I don't have anything to disagree with you. I could have totally seen where you went there. Like that's the thing about coaching.
Number 4 definitely was definitely Fizdale. Number 4.
Good. Lewis.
So for me, I guess I don't think you'll win.
All right, nobody cares about Lewis, so we'll just skip that right now.
Let's go. All right, we're done.
I had Jason Kidd as my number 1 assistant coach.
I do think that part of Frank Vogel's success comes from having Lionel Hollins and Jason Kidd there on the bench too. You're talking about they have 3 head coaches on their team.
Yeah, I wouldn't call Jason Kidd a head coach.
I would call him a head coach. He's obviously the head coach. He's truly the head coach.
So my number 3 was Monty Williams. I think that just the fact that he might not get fired this year is already good enough to be on the top of the head coach list. Yeah, the Devin Booker might have a coach for more than 1 year for the first time in his career. So my number 2 is so I was debating between Nick Nurse and Eric Spoelstra, but I think I'm going to go with Eric Spoelstra as my number 1 and Nick Nurse as my number 2. Nick Nurse, what he's done with Toronto, their ability to still be really good team, play defense, while losing arguably the best player in the NBA is impressive. So he deserves some votes for that. But Eric Spoelstra has been the second best coach in the NBA for the last decade outside of Pop. And the fact that he hasn't won a Coach of the Year is kind of sad when he's a Hall of Fame level coach. And I think the fact that he has taken this team that people were expecting to be like maybe the 6th seed and they're the 2nd seed currently in the NBA in the Eastern Conference, it's much to his credit and his ability to get all these players, to get guys like Jimmy Butler to buy into this system. And a lot of it is also the way that Miami operates. So I'm gonna say Eric Spoelstra is my Coach of the Year only because David Fizdale got fired, so he's actually not eligible. So that's pretty much all of our awards, and we'll just start wrapping it up. So if you want to take it away.
All right, guys. So once again, thanks for listening to 48 Minutes or Less NBA podcast. Please like and share this with your friends, and yeah, keep on rocking. Ball is life.
My most improved player is the Boston Celtics team.